All right, everybody. My name's Anita Collier. Welcome. If you weren't here at the first workshop, welcome in the live stream. We're so glad you're here for the penultimate weekend of the Spring I Can't workshops. Next weekend, we're going to do watercolor with the Sherwin Miller Museum of Jewish Art and African dance with Living Arts. So we hope you'll come back for that final weekend. But now, Brianna, are you, oh, I'm sorry, you getting to? Yeah, and I kind of rushed her. It's my fault. I ran over on the first one, so she's a trooper.
In your pocket.
So for this one, if you're following along at home, we need some felt, we need some needles and thread, but if you're here, we've got everything we need to create these beautiful flowers. Brianna Heffley-Shepard is an adjunct instructor here at TCC. If you've taken other workshops with us, we're really excited for you to come back, Brianna. Thank you for being here. She also has a side business called bifftastica.com, BIFFTASTICA.com. So please help me welcome Brianna.
Thank you. Hello, how's everyone doing? Good, okay. We've got a lot to do in a short amount of time. So I'm gonna jump right in. How many of you have ever hand sewn before? Oh, fantastic, a group of professionals. Okay, wonderful. We're starting off right. So I've got examples of some of the flowers that I've done, but we're gonna do this version right here. Okay, you're gonna make that today. You can do it, okay? This is the same version, I just have a pin back on it. I do have some extra pin backs if you would rather that than a stem, okay? It's a little bit different, but everyone has a stem on the table. So that's what we're gonna go forward with. Okay, are you ready? Hopefully you have enough supplies at your table. You should. If not, we can share with our neighboring tables. I want to and need to introduce my wonderful helpers. It's my daughter Rio, who's walking around, and my friend Bianca, who owns Owl and Drum, which is my favorite fabric shop in town. They are here to help you and help me, and so if you need anything, feel free to flag them down with any questions or needs. If you find that you need a different needle or you need help threading a needle, anything like that, they can help you, okay? Okay, so everyone's going to need, so you have a plate in the middle of your table with a bunch of supplies. So what each person needs is one of these long strips. These are going to be your petals. You're gonna need a green square. So that's gonna be the base of your flower down here, and your leaves. Okay, and you'll need a yellow rectangle, okay? Okay. So you'll need those 3 pieces to start. We're going to be sharing some supplies on our table as well. So we're going to need to share the needle threaders, the pin, and the scissors, and the thread, and our spirits, and our encouragement. Okay. So first things first, we're going to cut all of our pieces out, okay? So I like to start with the petals. And I didn't make a template for you because, as you know, in nature, petals are all sorts of different shapes and sizes. Our goal is to make 10 petals out of this long piece here. What I like to do is I kind of eyeball it, but you can also use your thumb as a guide. So I could just put my thumb down and kind of trace around. And sometimes these need a little encouragement to write. Boop, boop, boop. So I'm just kind of using my thumb. That's a good size. Okay. Just like so. And then I'll cut my first one out and use that as my template. So there we go, I've got a petal. And now I can use that. I can lay it on here and I can trace again, or I can just cut around it. So if I want to trace again, I can just do this 10 times. This does not need to be perfect. Perfect's real boring, right? Okay. 10 is the goal. Okay? Whoop, I just threw one of my petals. So then what you can do if you want, if you feel comfortable with it, you can cut a couple of them at a time. So I could fold my long piece, and I can cut 2 at a time. Depending on your scissors, you may be able to cut 3 at a time. It's whatever you're comfortable with, whatever your hands feel comfortable with. And so very quickly, you'll end up with 10 of these petals. I like cutting 2 at a time. The more you get, the more room there is for your pieces to shift, your layers to shift. So I think 2 is a good number if you're choosing to double them up or do multiple ones at the same time. Oops. Everyone's concentrating hard and cutting. Even me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I need 2 more. I like making these because they never wilt. I never have to water them. I can put them in places where I wouldn't normally put flowers, right? My cat won't eat them and then give them back to me later. So they're great. Okay, so I have 10 petals now. Now we're going to take our green square, and I know if you're still cutting, that's fine. Keep cutting. Your green square, we're going to cut 2 petals and this little circular bottom here, okay? And you've got a great guide on your table. You have these, you like all the new thread that I brought today? I have lots of old thread, and we're going to use it up, right? So these medium-sized ones are a great size for a guide. So I'm going to stick it kind of over in the corner. We don't have large green pieces, so we want to make sure and maximize how we're doing our cutting on this. And I'm going to use this spool as a guide. Now, if you have a really big spool, that may be a little too big. So I'm just going to draw a circle around that, okay? And then I'm just going to freehand something a little larger than my petal, maybe. Maybe not, maybe about the same size. I'm going to cut 2 of those. So I'm going to cut my first one, then I'll cut my second one. They don't have to be exactly the same. Let's see. All the preparation, that's the stuff that takes a long time, right? Getting everything together. So then I'm just going to cut all of these bits out. And my circle. Okay, it's coming together. Okay, now our last piece that we're going to prep is the yellowish rectangle. Now this one I do want you to do with me because there's some folding we're going to do in a certain way, okay? Okay, So we're going to hold it to where it's tall away from us. So the short side closest to us, and then the long side running the other direction. That was a really bad description. But we want it, you can see like this. I'm going to hold it like this, okay? And I'm going to fold it in half, okay? On the long side. Fold it in half on the long side. So I take it like this, fold it in half on the long side. And now I'm going to cut some little slats, just like so, but not all the way to the end. You see there's, no, it's really hard to see. I'm not cutting it all the way to the end. I'm just making a little fringe, okay? So if I go back, you can see there's my long fold, and then I'm cutting from the middle, but not all the way down to the edge. Oops, doesn't have to be perfect. That's what I tell myself all the time. Okay, and then it's going to look very strange, kind of like this when I open it up. Y'all are doing great. We're making good progress. I have more yellow pieces. If you find that you make a cut that's a little too extreme, or you want to try it a different way. So Rio and Bianca can hand you one of those if you need. But we're going to talk about threading your needles. So you're probably going to be threading your needles a few times today. So I want you to feel comfortable in doing so. And maybe some of you are like, needle threading, no big deal. I got this. That's easy, okay? But maybe some of you need a little help with that. So Rio and Bianca can help with that. But also, we have these things on the table that look very strange. Let me see if I can get a good. This is a needle threader, okay? So you should have some of these on your plates. Okay. Okay, this is a needle threader. I'm going to introduce needle threaders to you. If you buy a pack of needles at the store, a lot of times they come with these. And you're like, what is this weird thing? Well, I'm going to teach you all about it today. Okay? So you should have at least 2 thread spools on your table. You've got one that's green, and then you have the other one. We're going to use the other one. Okay? So don't use, I guess you could use the green one right now if you wanted to. Basically, I want you to use a contrasting thread. I want you to use a thread that's not the same color as your petals. I want you to be able to see what you're doing with this thread. So I'm going to use this bright blue because that is very opposite of my orange petals. And I'm going to pull my thread out a little bit kind of like from my fingertip to my other shoulder. So a little longer than I would normally do for hand sewing, because I'm going to double my thread over, okay? So I've got my thread cut. Let me show you how to use these awesome needle threaders. Make sure I remember how to do it. So you do have to put something through the eye of the needle, and I don't know how well this is going to translate on this screen. Well, so there's a hole at the end of your needle, and you're going to put the point of the needle threader through your needle. Okay, so now my needle hangs on my needle threader. Okay, and I've got this weird thing sticking out of the other end of it. Let's see. There we go. There's a good picture. Okay. So then I take my thread, after I've got the needle threader on my needle, I take my thread and I put it through that open part. Maybe, okay. I put it through that open part of the needle threader, and then my needle pulls off there. Sometimes I have to give it a little wiggle, and boom, my needle is threaded thanks to that little doohickey. Clear as mud? Okay, Rio and Bianca can help you with that if you need. So basically, you're putting the needle threader on your needle first, through the eye of the needle, and then you put the thread through the needle threader, and you pull the needle threader off. Or you can just thread your needle. You don't have to use the needle threader, but I want to make sure that we talked about how to do it if you needed. So I'm doubling my thread over completely, okay? And I'm going to tie a knot down at the bottom. I'm going to do a double knot just to be safe, okay? So now my needle is threaded. I'm trying to get clear photos. It's double looped, and then I've got it knotted down at the bottom, okay? Okay. How are we doing? We're about ready to start sewing. If you all are, I am. But I want to make sure you all are doing okay. Not yet? Okay. You want to go walk around and check on, see if tables need any help? Okay. What are we still working on? Let me. Oh, okay, okay. Okay, fantastic. Like I said, the prep is the long part. That's the tedious part. No one ever tells you that so much of sewing is preparation and planning, right? But it's worth it in the long run. And just think, you'll only have to make like 50 more of these to have a little garden of them in your home. Okay. We'll take just another minute, and then we're going to start to put our stuff together, okay? So you will need, when we do our next step, one of your floral stems. So make sure you've got a floral stem too. Okay, so with our floral stem on one end, we're just going to bend. We're just going to make a little tiny loop at the end. Okay? You should be able to do that with your hand. I cannot. Wish I could get that to focus. Let's see. Hopefully that translates well. Okay, so just fold one end of your floral stem over, just a hair. Yes. The writing pens. Oh. Yeah, and if you don't want a floral stem, I've got some pens. So you'll skip the floral stem part. It's a little different putting it together, okay? Okay, so we're going to take our folded floral stem end and our weird yellow stamen that we folded over strangely, okay? And we're going to fold that again, okay? We're going to fold it. Thinking real quick. We're going to fold it over like this. We're going to basically lock it in. So I'm going to put my needle through the back here. You're not going to see all these bottom pieces. And I'm going to fold that over. You might get poked when you're sewing. It's okay. You'll make it, okay? And I'm sewing the stamen to that wire. This will allow me to wave my flower in the air and not worry about the top of the flower coming off. So all I'm doing is just sewing that loop. Sewing that loop. Oh, still, I'm trying to let it focus. Sewing the loop of the flower stem into the middle of that yellow piece of felt, okay? Now, don't worry what your stitches look like, because you're not going to see them when this is all done, okay? That's nice. You can get crazy with your stitches if you want. So I'm just going to give it, I don't know, 3 or 4 stitches there. Get it nice and secure. That's it. Yes, yeah. That kind of locks it into place, yeah. Okay, and what I like to do, and I don't know if everyone likes to do this or not, but what I like to do is when I'm moving from one part to another on these flowers, I put a lot of knots in the middle of this thing, this whole project, to just secure things in place. So I'm done with my stamen part. I am going to make a knot before I move on to the petals. And here's a really cool trick with hand sewing and making a knot. I can put my needle in the middle of the knot loop, and wherever I point my needle is where that knot is going to end up. Have you ever made a knot and it ends up somewhere completely different than you wanted it to be? It's happened to me a million times. But if you put your needle point where you want the knot to end up and then pull that knot loop, that knot is going to end up where you want it. It's magic. This is probably something other than magic too, but I like to believe that it's magic. Okay. And maybe I'll make a second knot just because I like to make knots. Okay. Okay. We ready for the next step? We're doing great. I know it looks crazy right now, but. So now we're going to start putting the petals on. And this is a part, there are binder clips on your plates. Some people may find that the binder clips may help you hold the petals in place as you're sewing. I just use my hands, but if you need a little extra help with that, I think binder clips may help well, okay? We may have some more in the back, I'm not certain, but there's, I think, 3 on every plate, okay? So now, I'm going to start adding my petals. So a few things about this. We're basically going to spiral the petals all the way around. We're just going to keep kind of staggering them as we go. So I want my petals to kind of be either right lined up with the bottom of the stamen or just a little above it, okay? And I'm going to come up behind. I just poked myself a little bit, okay? My goal is 2 or 3 stitches in the bottom of each petal, okay? And I'm going to go down the other side. I'm going all the way through to the back and then up, okay? There we go, I got my first petal on. And then I'm going to take my next petal, and I'm going to go into the back of it. Well, maybe. And I am staggering it. So see how it's laying over the edge of it? Okay. And then I'm going to go down. And it's going to kind of go around the little corner. I'm going to have to fold it. Oops, I got a little knot. Uh-oh. There we go. I'm going to fold it around the edge. And again, you're not going to see these stitches, okay? And I like to, as I go through these, as I put a petal on, I like to put a knot at the end of each petal to hold it into place. Okay? Oops. So that's what my other side looks like. And I'm going to keep adding them. If you decide you want 5 petals, put 5 petals. If you decide you want 20 petals, put 20. These ones have 30 petals on them. So the more petals you add, the fuller it looks. You can add different colors in there if you want. It's limitless. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to keep adding my petals. This is a perfect project for spring, right? Like the edge of spring, where the flowers aren't here yet, but we're ready for them. So we're just going to make our own. I always want to come back up at the edge of the petal before I start a new one. And I'm going to make a knot, hold it into place. I love how quiet it gets when everyone's concentrating when they're sewing. It's like the two extremes of a room full of sewists. It's either nonstop chatter or complete silence. And you just keep adding until you get all of your petals on. When you'll find that you'll overlap the first round that you did just by a couple petals.
Are you doing it all the way around?
I am going all the way out the back. Yeah. You won't see these. You just want to make it nice and secure. And it may come to a point that you need more thread. You all are professional threaders now, so you can just get more thread. I think the contrasting thread is helpful for this so you can see where you're going, making sure you're hitting all your layers, and no one's going to see this part. You can kind of lay them out as you go. I find the most finicky part is when I turn the corner of the flower. Oops. Okay. How are we doing? What number petal are you on? 2? Okay. 2's better than 1. Have you all ever done a project like this before? Those of you who've sewn before? Made any flowers? With fabric? Yeah, I tried a bunch with fabric. They've got a different feel to them, right? They're a little bit floppier unless you interface them, starch them, yeah. Oops. I've had a lot of practice on these, so I can get these petals sewn on pretty quickly. Yeah, the knot trick. I hear it out there. And when you get to your very last one, you're just going to make a knot and cut your thread after the knot. I didn't mention that oops, I didn't do the knot trick and my knot did not go where I wanted it. There is a thimble on most of the plates out there that may be helpful for some of you. As you get more petals on, there's more layers, so you may need a little bit more oomph to get the thread through. So feel free to try a thimble. I don't use thimbles very often, except when I'm working with lots of layers. I think people use thimbles for a lot of different reasons, and that's why I use it. Okay, so this is what my flower looks like right now. Okay. Okay. So we're on the final lap of this. We've got just a little bit of time left. So I'm going to start talking about the next part. If you're not there yet, that's okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add on a couple leaves just to the outside of this. Okay? And I'm going to sew them on just like I did the petals. Pardon me. Oop. Let's see. I'm going to thread my needle exactly how I did before, doubled over. Okay, so I'm just going to sew my leaves on just like I did the petals. I kind of like to do mine across from each other, but you could do them both together if you wanted. It's however you want your thing to look. Oops. And I can always, after my flower's done, I can take scissors and shape up the petals and the leaves if I want to. I can cut notches out of things if I want. Like, I can customize this however I want to. And I can do that, you know, at the first part when I am making my, cutting out all my pieces, or I can do it when it's done and I see how it's blooming. Maybe there's something about the bloom that I want a little bit different. So you can make this change however you want. Okay, so I've got 2 leaves on here now. Oops. And so now from the top, this is what it looks like. And so now, the last step. Now, if you are doing a pin back, What you'll want to do is take your green circle and sew your pin back on first before you put it on the base of your flower, okay? It's a lot easier to sew that pin back on before it has the flower attached to it, okay? If you're using the stem, which I think most of you are, we want to, some of the felts you can kind of just poke a little hole. That one's a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to make a teeny tiny little notch in the middle of that green hole, or the green circle. And I'm just going to stick the end of the stem through that hole. And then I bring it all the way up to the base. And my final step, my final step is to sew that circle to the base of this, okay? So, how I like to do that, I wonder if I can, hey, there we go, okay. I'm gonna start underneath, and I'm just going to go to the leaf or petal, and back into the circle. Leaf, petal, back into the circle. My circle's a little small, so I'm going to try to, oh, I'm sorry. So I'm going to kind of squeeze some of this stuff in. See a thread I want to clip. And so I like doing this because if you look at a lot of flowers, at the base of their stem, there's often a large green area. I don't know what that's called, but it also hides all my bulk and my stitches. So it mimics a real flower, and it hides what I don't want everyone to see. While we're stitching, I'd love to tell you about a new space that's getting ready to open in the Kendall Whittier district here in the next few weeks. It's called Community Craft, and it will offer all sorts of creative classes and things you can buy. Bianca Allen-Drum, she's involved with many other creative businesses in town, so keep your eye open for that. I think it's going to be very special and have lots of different things that we're offering. So it'll be called Community Craft. It's in Kendall Whittier. It's where Whitty Books used to be. One thing I didn't tell you at the very beginning, because I didn't want to psych you out at all, is that this is not necessarily a beginner project. But you all are doing a great job. I think there's a good lesson in that if you just do things step by step and you celebrate every step that you make it through, then eventually you'll get to the end and you'll look back and you say, I did that. That's pretty cool. Whoops. So I'm almost at the end of sewing my circle on. And you'll see one thing that happens that you don't really expect is that when you sew that circle onto the leaves and the petals, it naturally opens your flower up more. It pulls those petals open, which I think is such a cool effect. Because I've sewn my circle, to the backs of these petals and the leaves. So it naturally opens it up. So I'm done with this. I'm going to show you one more thing that I like to do when I'm done with mine. Yeah, great question. So some of the felt you can kind of poke the wire through. I think most of the felt that's out there, you just need to take the circle and you fold it in half and just make a teeny, teeny, tiny, little snip. And then you just work that circle through there. Okay? So what I like to do when I'm done sewing my thing together, I like to go through my stamen, the yellow pieces, and I make these snips even smaller. These little strips that we did at the very beginning, I like to make them a lot smaller. I'm careful not to cut my petals. Okay, so I've just cut down the middle of those. And then I personally like to open mine up. So I snip at the tops of these. And then maybe I'll give it a little haircut if I feel like it needs to be just a little shorter. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And there we go. That's my flower. Now I can kind of manipulate the petals and stuff if I want. So we are at time.
It's okay. It's all right.
Okay.
Okay. So we are not going to be kicking anybody out. First of all, Brianna, that was a beautiful project. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
And can you share with us who was assisting you today so we can thank them as well?
Yes, this is Bianca with Allen Drum in the back, Allen Drum Fabrics, and then my daughter Rio.
Yay. Thank you so much for coming to help. So yeah, you're welcome to stay to finish up. There's not another event in here after this, so you can keep working. However, we will need to retain some of the supplies. Obviously, you'll want to return the scissors. What else are they keeping versus returning, Brianna?
So I think, let me think. The thimbles I'll take. The binder clips and pins are yours. I think last time you let them take the needles with them.
Yeah.
And if you want to cut some thread, I'd like to have the spools back and the little plates back. They can take the felt if they want to take
Okay,
more.
so let's go over the supplies you can take versus the supplies you'll need to leave. You may take the needles and threaders, and you may also cut thread to take with you if you need additional thread. However, the spools will need to stay. The scissors need to stay.
Thimbles need to stay.
And the thimbles need to stay because we reuse those for future workshops. But of course, you can take the needles, the threads, your flowers, any little pieces of felt that you might need to finish up the project. We were so happy that you chose to spend your morning with us today. I hope you have an amazing weekend and that we get to see you back next week. And again, thank you so much to Brianna Heffley Shepherd for teaching today. This was a really cool project. Have a great afternoon.